bedrock of modern government is the payment of taxes by the citizens.
Definitely. For effective governance, the taxes paid by the citizens play a vital role in economic development. That is coming from the chairman of the Enugu State Board of Internal Revenue Service at the 141st Joint Tax Board meeting held in Enugu State from the 15th to 17th of July 2018. Welcome to Tax Matters. I am Pearl Namaka. Stay with us as we share with you what went on at the event. We begin with the keynote address of the Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Honorable Dr. Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, as he declared the 141st Joint Tax Board meeting open.
It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this quarterly meeting of the Joint Tax Board, which you have graciously chosen to hold here in Enugu. I understand that this is the 141st meeting of the JTB. The federating units of the country are increasingly looking to taxation and fiscal discipline as a way of remaining solvent and functioning pending the resolution of such disputes.
The governor went on to reel out steps taken by the state government to enhance revenue generation.
In our bid to expand the tax net and explore new revenue sources for the state, the Land Use Assessment Appeal Tribunal law was enacted to enable the tribunal hear and adjudicate complaints from property owners on the land use charge law. We are glad to report that these measures have made a tremendous impact on our revenue streams, enabling our IGR to peak at 22 billion last year, in contrast to the 14 billion we collected in the whole of the 2016 fiscal year. More importantly, this, coupled with our prudent management of the state financial resources, has helped us finance unprecedented developmental programs to make life more meaningful for our people.
In his opening remarks, the chairman, Joint Tax Board, reiterated the objectives of the Joint Tax Board while emphasizing the importance of inspection of projects executed with tax revenue.
The objective of us holding meetings basically is to talk about tax matters, to talk about ways that we can provide better service, to look at contracts executed by taxpayers' money. The governors of Nigeria know without a doubt that the only way to ensure sustainable economic and social development is through tax revenue. And that is why on the papers every month there are issues with FAC, either not enough remittances being shared and distributed between the three tiers of government, but it's certain that we can only continue to fund our respective budgets if we, as tax administrators, carry out our duties diligently to ensure that all required revenue is collected as when due. At the United Nations, for the first time, the World Bank, the IMF, and other stakeholders got together and came up with not a formula, but a saying that if your tax revenue to GDP is below 15%, it is not likely you'll be able to fund or carry out any economic development. Looking at the figures of Enugu State's Internal Revenue Service, I'd like to congratulate you that you have exceeded this figure already. The Joint Tax Board is the umbrella body for tax administration in Nigeria. Its membership, as introduced, involves 36 state boards of internal revenue and the Federal Capital Territory. Also, we have other stakeholders who are members of the board. The whole idea is for us to work together as members of this board to ensure that we provide not only effective but efficient service to all taxpayers. At this point, I'm also delighted because I just got the reports yesterday that for the first time in the history of this country, we now have a consolidated tax database for the whole nation. So it's not strange now for us to have that information while we're in Enugu State.
Mr. Fowler went on to speak on the role ICT has played in the ease of doing business and curtailing tax avoidance in the country.
I'm sure that we all have noticed that the environment of domestic and international taxation is also undergoing dynamic changes. This is not unrelated to the evolution of information communication technology and the rapid transformation in bringing it to bear in the process of doing business in the 21st century. With business operations of multinationals and high net worth individuals, e-commerce, and the volume of borderless financial transactions, increasing sophistication of tax evasive and aggressive avoidance practices, there's an increasing risk of government tax revenue getting undiscovered. We as members of the Joint Tax Board have said that we're going to develop ourselves, develop our strategies to ensure that all those high net worth individuals and corporate organizations operating in Nigeria will not escape the tax net. In doing so, we had exchanged tax data information about a year and a half ago, and at this meeting, we're also going to start another round of exchange of information. I'd also like to point out that Nigeria also signed the Multilateral Competent Authority Agreement, the MCAA, which will trigger the automatic exchange of information among treaty partners, with the first exchanges scheduled to commence in September 2019. What this means basically is that we have the opportunity to get information of income for all Nigerian businesses or nationals outside the shores of Nigeria, and likewise, other partners will get similar information of their own nationals and foreign business investments in Nigeria. We believe that that will also boost the revenue collected by our various boards of internal revenue, and we, as a body, would like to state once again that we're committed to ensure that we can fund our respective states' budgets through IGR, given the support required and all the political will that is also needed in carrying out this assignment. We will fund this nation.
One important feature of the quarterly Joint Tax Board meetings is the exchange of ideas, which centers around the presentation of papers.
One of the things a tax authority must do is first to empower your employee. How do you do that? First is to ensure that they have the adequate tools to work. Second is to engage your taxpayers using all sorts of media tools, social media, through your websites, and other electronic means. Third is to optimize your operations. Doing this, you can do this by automating your services, and the last is to transform your services, which is to ensure that taxpayers experience little or no burden in paying their taxes and also doing other tax business. To start with, just like we've talked about, is to identify and profile our taxpayers. And the Joint Tax Board Secretariat, like I know, is doing a lot in this regard. So what do states need to do? First is just to leverage on the existing data that the Joint Tax Board has put together as a quick win. This will improve the response time to tax inquiries and complaints, minimize human errors, improve technology and infrastructure in the state, and then transform business processes. As a tax authority, you cannot just operate on the data you have in silo. You need to leverage on third-party organizations that the taxpayers are doing business with to be able to run analytics and get interesting information. And then the last is to personalize tax portal. They should have like a mobile app or an internet service where they can log in and see all the taxes that are being deducted from their salaries if they are also remitted to the tax authority.
On best practices,
first is e-services. We've talked about e-registration already. States need to automate their filing process, e-filing, e-payments, e-receipts, e-stamp duties, e-tax clearance. Then the next is the e-payment channels. Taxpayers should be given opportunity to have flexible payment channels to make their payments on the fly in whatever location they find themselves. Information exchange with third-party database. The Joint Tax Board is already linking with Nigerian interbank settlement systems, and this information will be made available to the states. The JTB is also linking with the Corporate Affairs Commissions so that new taxpayers that are registering for their companies would have automatic TINs generated for them in less than 24 hours. it is also important to link with relevant agencies like the Nigerian immigration systems so that we can track the movements of expatriates. The Nigerian Stock Exchange is also an important and very relevant stakeholders, among so many other ones. And then, of course, the social media platforms. We're saying that taxpayer education and sensitization can be driven using the social media as a relevant tool. One is ease of remittance of taxpayers. By the time you provide various platforms, the ease of payments, ease of doing business. Of course, this also promotes accountability because it reduces the human intervention where taxpayer needs to talk to the tax officers and exchange all sorts of monies and all of that. Improve service delivery to taxpayers, improve taxpayer education, and so many other things. It enhances staff efficiency, reduces cost of enforcing compliance. Because right now, a lot of SBRs are spending a lot of money on enforcement, which can be done by just, introducing technology. I'll give you a typical example, one tax type which have been implemented, which is the stamp duties. E-stamping will help eradicate so many of these manual processes, whereby assessments are done online, payments are done online, stamping is done online, and even the certificate is issued online. With this kind of service, the taxpayer, it will reduce a lot of burden on the taxpayer side on getting a tax clearance. And FRS is doing this currently, and this has significantly improved the revenue on this particular tax type.
London, New York or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office, you can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC or for other transactions that require stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government covers so that you can get your receipt within 45 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
Opening formalities over, the 141st Joint Tax Board meeting went on the way with the chairman's report.
As a chairman, if you're not delivering, your governor has every right to ask you to step aside. And I think one thing that we have to bear in mind is that we have to be bold, we have to add value to our job, and we have to, most of all, make sure we collect the revenue that will endear you as a tax administrator to the government that you serve. And that is why we talk about peer review, we talk about different innovations that we have introduced, and I think you have to be more proactive. Going forward, like I said before, all state governors are fully aware that they cannot perform or carry out their duties without funding. And this funding has to come directly from the various boards of internal revenue. In the last 2 months, FIRS contributed close to 80% of all the money shared at FAC. Every state has to chip in, meaning that all of us have to get to work. In terms of VADES, by now, the JTB should have a detailed report of how many people have applied through your states, the value, those that have made direct payments, those that have been given instrumental payments approval.
Every day, my people dey for work. Some dey do office work, some get it them own business. So all of them want good road, constant power for better life. Whether na office work, oh yeah, pay your tax. Whether na your own business, oh pay your tax. If you want a better life, oh pay Pay your tax. Now your civic responsibility. Pay your tax. Better soup, now money cook am. Oh yes. Nothing goes for nothing, my brother. If you want portable water, security and hospital for make life jolly.
That's right. Good roads, good hospitals, portable water, adequate security all come from taxpayers' money. Play your part in making Nigeria great. Everybody, small scale, big companies, entrepreneurs, do the right thing. Pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
Delegates to the 141st Joint Tax Board meeting went on an inspection tour of projects executed with taxpayers' money. Wow! Taxpayers' money in action. It pays to pay your taxes. After observing the great work done with revenue from taxes paid, Tax Matters had the opportunity to talk with key members of the Joint Tax Board.
What are your takeaways from this meeting?
Well, the meeting was very, very fantastic. We discussed all the avenues to use information technology to raise taxes, and I come out from the meeting feeling that the future is very bright for tax administration in the country.
Looking at the level of infrastructural development in Enugu State, what part did the taxpayers' money play in achieving these developments?
We are one of the very few states in Nigeria that are very, very viable. That's because we take IGR, internal legislative revenue, very, very seriously. We ensure people to pay their taxes. And people are happy to pay their taxes because they're seeing the money that they're paying being put to good use. We've used IGR to build a lot of roads. We use IGR to build a lot of schools. We use IGR to, currently we are in the process of reforming our court process, building new court buildings, and that's from IGR. So IGR has been very, very, very effective, very crucial in all the programs that the Excellency has been implementing since it came to power.
What are your takeaways from this GTV meeting?
Thank you very much. I think we have a lot of things to take away from this meeting. The hosts, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, Right Honorable Dr. Ifeanyi Ogwani, was able to demonstrate clearly how a state chief executive, who, as it were, is the chief tax collector, could provide the enabling environment for the revenue administration to discharge its duty so as to enhance revenue generation and also get a buy-in of the populace to support government by paying their taxes. We are also able to eye-mark and inspect the various projects, the huge network of roads and other infrastructural projects that the revenue generated, the IGR has been used to execute for the people. We've also used this opportunity to review our various strategy for growing and enhancing revenue generation, both at the federal and state and local government levels. And we currently have put in place an ICT system that will enable us put our applications and our data on the cloud platform, which makes it easy access for all tax authority without necessarily physically moving any records anywhere. So once we get the consolidated database of about 19 million taxpayers, and we are able to integrate with other major stakeholders like the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System that have the BVN database. And that database alone has about 33 million individual records. which means the moment we are able to do that integration and have that link, we have instantly about over 33 million taxpayers coming into the tax net. And then we'll be able to make this information available to all tax authority so that they can carry out the necessary assessment and getting these people to also pay their taxes.
Why is it that most states are not meeting the targets required by the FIRs?
Well, for one, there are certain conditions for you to have an effective and efficient tax revenue board. And we discussed those issues during the meeting. And basically, we have requested that all governors demonstrate the political will for their boards to be effective, grant them autonomy, give them the required support. And on the side of the Joint Tax Board, the state chairmen have said today that if they do not deliver on their mandate after those conditions have been met, they're willing to resign. So I think the state chairmen are ready to put in all that is required to provide effective and efficient tax administration within the state. And so we're calling on the governors, who are their bosses, to please provide that environment.
Now that VAT is over, what's next?
Well, what next is that those who did not take the opportunity to come forward and declare under VAT, we will now use all legal means at our disposal to ensure that they're brought to book and that they pay the required taxes. And if need be, we will prosecute them.
On his impressions after inspecting some projects executed with taxpayers' money in Enugu State?
Well, my impressions are more than excellent. We have gone on quite a number of miles or kilometers of road with no potholes, and all these were done with tax revenue and parts from the federal allocation. And when you look at what they collect and what the current tax revenue is, you'll be amazed at the magnitude of work that has been done in this state.
At the end of it all, a communique was issued.
This is the text of the communique issued at the end of the 141st meeting of the Joint Tax Board, held today, 16 July 2018, at Best Event Center, Industrial Layout, Enugu State. 1. All state boards of internal revenue require political will and support to carry out their functions effectively. This will assist state IRS to meet the revenue targets for their states. State governors are urged to display adequate political will to support the process of tax administration. On the part of JTB, any state chairman who does not deliver on their targets will be willing to resign their appointments after the above conditions have been met. All tax authorities should automate their tax administration system in line with global best practices to enable them to take advantage of the newly consolidated National Taxpayers Database for effective exchange of information. Detailed audit of both federal and state MDS to be carried out for the last 6 years to reconcile unremitted taxes and appropriate action taken afterwards towards settlement. This will enable the federal and the state governments to generate more revenue to execute projects for the citizenry.
We thank you most sincerely for watching. Have a beautiful week ahead.